according to our sources, Diddy is not being housed in a solitary cell. And what's more surprising, the sources say he can still get his freak on, so to speak. There is apparently a secret system that inmates on the block all seem to know about, a way to spy on the female inmates who are housed one floor below them.
Diddy Combs has been denied bail in connection with the sexual abuse and sex trafficking charges he faces. And as Les Trent reports, the music mogul who once traveled by private jet to all those mansions is now in a jail that is notorious for its bad living conditions.
From glamorous champagne-filled parties to the stark reality of federal prison, Sha Diddy, the music mogul who once enjoyed a lavish lifestyle aboard private jets, is now finding that his new surroundings offer less luxury and a bit more, shall we say, rustic appeal.
But there's no way there could be some way to contact the ladies down below, but tell me how it worked.
It's a dormitory Puff Daddy's in. He's not in cells. So there's a big dorm with a bunch of bunks, and then there's a little room where you go into, and it's like a workout area. But it's not really a yard, you would say. It's just like with gates, like you see right there in the building. And you could literally lay down, and the females are right below you, and you could just yell at them, and they yell back, and basically like you could kind of see them, and they could see you a little bit, but you have to watch out for the guards, obviously. But you can talk with them and, show each other some things sometimes, which I never did any of that.
Diddy made his grand entrance in federal court, but the spotlight was far from flattering. Shackled at the ankles, he resembled more of a character from Orange is the New Black than the glamorous Grammy winner he once was.
Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is notorious for its appalling living conditions and rampant violence. How bad is it inside this federal lockup? There have been 2 murders, 4 suicides, and numerous stabbings and lockdowns in recent years. It's so out of control inside that 4 federal judges are reportedly refusing to send any more prisoners here. Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, spent a harrowing year in federal custody. He says for someone used to a life of luxury like Diddy, prison life is a severe shock.
To underscore the seriousness of his situation, the judge didn't just deny bail. He effectively gift-wrapped Diddy for Brooklyn's notorious Metropolitan Detention Center, a facility often referred to as hell on earth.
Desk, you have a plastic chair, you have your bed with a 1.5-inch mattress, no pillow, and you also have a locker. So you basically have 3 feet by 5 feet to move around. So you have a basic 15 square feet. It is a horrible, horrible place.
Diddy's lawyers were so eager to keep him out of jail, they offered his palatial $48 million home in Miami Beach and his private jets as bail.
It's quite a downgrade for Diddy, swapping his $48 million Miami mansion for a 15 square foot slice of misery. Gone are the plush pillows and gourmet breakfast. He's left with a mattress as thin as his chances of an early release and a plastic chair for his solitary musings. And just to be clear, this isn't a place where you can order caviar and room service.
Today, they are even offering to restrict female visitors to his homes, except for his mother, daughters, and the mothers of his children if he is released. They told the judge the jail he was being sent to is dreadful, dirty, inhuman, and an ongoing tragedy.
How's your dad doing? How's your dad doing?
Family members appeared somber as they arrived at federal court in Manhattan today in another attempt to get out on bail. The judge cited Diddy's history of violent temper and potential intimidation of witnesses.
Diddy's legal team went all out, proposing to put up his lavish properties as collateral and even promising to ban all female visitors except for his mother, daughters, and baby M. Because nothing says trust me quite like a ban voluntarily limiting his visitors. However, the judge wasn't swayed by this gesture, pointing out Diddy's, let's say, unpredictable temperament.
Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. 54-year-old Sean P. Diddy Combs is entering his 4th week behind bars, being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. It's a far cry from his lavish life and mansions in Miami and Los Angeles, but ironically, it was the evidence collected at those mansions that put Diddy in jail in the first place. Back in March, federal investigators raided Diddy's homes in Florida and California.
At 54, Diddy, once accustomed to luxury, now finds himself in the Metropolitan Detention Center, essentially the anti-mansion, decrepit, overcrowded, and, according to his legal team, a hotspot for violence. Ironically, it's evidence gathered from his mansions, AR-15s, illegal substances, and some damning electronic evidence that brought him to this point. Oh, the irony of lavish living.
Collecting evidence in the federal case against him. We now have a better idea about what investigators were collecting, including multiple AR-15 rifles with the serial numbers removed, a drum magazine, and illegal drugs. But Diddy doesn't face any charges for possession of those items. Instead, it was the electronic evidence that led to Diddy's charges. On September 16th, he was indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution.
In March, federal agents raided Diddy's homes, uncovering a trove of not-so-family-friendly videos in over 100 devices. These tapes allegedly provide evidence of his involvement in a decades-long trafficking ring, turning his elaborate escapades from silencing victims to supplying prosecutors with their smoking gun. An unexpected plot twist that caught everyone off guard.
A main topic discussed in this indictment was freak-offs, described as elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. And the government alleges these freak-offs were not consensual. The indictment lays out a pattern of abuse that Diddy would often follow, drugging or forcing the victims to drink alcohol that was oftentimes laced with something, sexually assaulting these victims, and then forcing them to have sex with a prostitute. Now, the feds say they have evidence of these freak-offs because Diddy often recorded them.
You'd think that offering $50,000 million in bail would be enough to secure release, but not for Diddy. Judge Andrew L. Carter quickly dismissed that idea, citing public safety concerns, the potential for witness tampering, and of course, that little matter of alleged anger issues. It turns out money can't solve everything.
Investigators apparently have dozens of freak-off videos and collected more than 100 cell phones, laptops, cloud storage accounts, and storage devices. They allege Diddy used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during the freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. So these same recordings that were once used to keep victims quiet are now being used to prosecute Diddy in a sex trafficking scheme that goes back decades. The allegations against Diddy go back a while too, with survivors reporting abuse as far back as 1991.
Now, let's discuss the accommodations. According to his attorneys, the jail resembles a horror movie, plagued by inmate attacks, multiple deaths, and 6 staff members charged with crimes. Yet somehow, Diddy's legal team portrays him as the unluckiest guy in a system that seems to thrive on chaos. Who would have thought?
When agents from Homeland Security Investigations approach and separate him, they place Combs under arrest and lead him out the front door in handcuffs. His lawyer said Combs had come to New York 2 weeks earlier with the intention of turning himself in. He did not expect the agents to be waiting at his hotel last Monday.
Shocking footage captures Diddy's dramatic arrest as he faces federal charges. This high-profile incident has left fans stunned and reignited discussions about his past controversies, raising questions about the future of one of entertainment's biggest icons.
To be locked up in one of the most run-down and violent jails in the U.S. For that, we'll turn to criminal defense attorney and law and crime legal analyst Imran Ansari, who repped other high-profile defendants like Harvey Weinstein and 50 Cent. I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. Alright, so big news out of New York, where P. Diddy has been held for more than a week in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. This comes after Diddy's arrest last Monday, following his indictment by a federal grand jury.
Reports suggest that Diddy has adopted a persona reminiscent of a James Bond villain mixed with a conspiracy theorist. His refusal to eat jail food is based on fears that someone might tamper with his meals. While other inmates are chowing down on their mystery meatloaf, Diddy seems convinced his might come with a side of arsenic. If nothing else, it's a rather creative weight loss strategy.
On charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The 14-page indictment lays out some pretty strong claims against Diddy, alleging he's guilty of sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The indictment goes on to allege Diddy showed a pattern of abuse, mostly against women, that included verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, including the use of extensive grooming tactics. There's also mention of something referred to as freak-off.
Oh, but that's not all. Diddy has been moved to a special protective unit, sharing quarters with other high-profile inmates, including crypto con Sam Bankman-Fried. It's like a twisted reality show. Let's call it Moguls and Misfits Behind Bars. One faces the fallout from FTX's collapse while the other has a lengthy indictment list. What could they possibly discuss over their non-existent meals?
Are described as elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. During these so-called freak-offs, Diddy would often drug his victims, sometimes without their knowledge, to keep them obedient and compliant. Then, Diddy allegedly required these victims to have sex with prostitutes, and oftentimes he recorded that too. Again, these recordings were made without the victim's knowledge or consent.
The Metropolitan Detention Center, or MDC for short, is hardly the Ritz. Reports of violence, overcrowding, and abysmal conditions make it sound more like a dungeon than a detention center. For Diddy, it's a stark contrast to his Cyrus-sculpted luxury lifestyle. Rumor has it, even the guards aren't sure whether to offer sympathy or cue the soundtrack to his downfall.
Welcome back to the Kempire Channel, your #1 source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Guys, if you enjoy content like this, make sure you come to our Kempire After Dark live experience in Los Angeles this Wednesday, November 20th at the Bourbon Room, Hollywood. And then we're coming to London.
People magazine wasn't kidding when they reported that Diddy still wields influence from within Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. Investigators claim he's been breaking jailhouse rules, allegedly paying witnesses to sway public perception, and even managing PR campaigns through his family. You'd think he'd be using his time to read or reflect, but instead, he seems to be plotting his next social media move.
We're going to be talking about everything from the Diddler to Hot Topics to reality TV and so much more. We'll be in London on December 8th at Neon 194. Then we're coming back to Washington, D.C. on January 24th. More information on the Kempire After Dark live experience, LA, London, and DC shows will be available in the description. So you know we've been covering the Diddler for months now at this particular point. As you know, he is trying for a third time.
According to prosecutors, Diddy isn't just making casual calls on prison phones. He's allegedly using other inmates' phone accounts, bribing them with commissary credits and cash for three-way calls. Reports suggest he's also facilitating secret payments through apps. It's like a jailhouse startup, but instead of innovation, it's all about intimidation.
Is trying for a third time to get out of jail. He's facing charges for trafficking, all kinds of stuff. We've gone through all those details, but we did a separate video just a few weeks ago where People magazine says that Diddy still has power and influence even from within inside this jail. And that is important to note because this new information might be the reason why for a third time he will be denied bail.
They discovered notes in his cell, yes, actual notes, allegedly detailing how he paid a witness to make a friendly Instagram post supporting his case. Nothing says innocent quite like orchestrating a social media campaign from behind bars. It's as if he's attempting to turn his trial into the next Netflix docu-series.
Need you to get rid of all the leftover pizza boxes. You know what? All the boxes left over from the pizza. All the boxes. Make sure you recycle the plastic like we talked about.
Diddy calls his son from jail, not to share life lessons or regrets, but to emphasize the urgent need to recycle pizza leftovers. He's focused on saving those slices and being a true environmental hero, even while serving time. Priorities, right?